Welcome to Sips and Stanzas, presented by the National Museum of African American Music. Sips and Stanzas is a social networking event that provides audiences with an opportunity to experience the musical stylings of emerging artists and participate in engaging discussions about America's music culture. I'd like to recognize our friends from HCA, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, and a special thanks to the Renaissance Nashville. All of you make tonight possible. We are pleased to have Ms. Tia Smedley join us this evening to moderate Sips and Stanzas presents The Prelude to Success, a discussion on sustaining oneself in the creative space. Every human is different. While harmony exists within creative practices, there's a natural distinctness with the way those practices are expressed. Even still, there is a greater separation, a sanctified singularity amongst artists who are celebrated for being masters of presence. They know how to be in the moment and are often described as having it. Tia Smedley has it. She's an atom bomb, a wonder. Her written and spoken words are shrapnel, leaving their mark even after their initial impact. As a poet and speaker, Tia is known for unforgettable performances that boast of her roots in the theater. From 2005 to 2012, she was half of the spoken word dynamic duo Gravity, who were the 2007 Spoken Word Southern Entertainment Artist of the Year. In 2009, Tia helped to create the poetry and spoken word curriculum, which she teaches in elementary schools through the university level for Southern Word. She is also a teaching artist for the National Museum of African American Music's after-school programs and a co-creator of Tennessee State University's annual two-day poetry and spoken word conference, I Want to Write. Tia created, directed, and co-wrote the compelling piece Beyond the Truth, Brown Tales of Innocence and Experience, which focused on youth and encounters that robbed them of their purity. She also created, directed, and co-wrote Poetry Moves, a stirring production revealing what happens when choreography mirrors word. Regardless of her gifts, opportunities, or titles, this mother of three chooses to be noted as a child of God, fulfilling her creative portion of the divine work necessary to bear the human experience. Everyone, please welcome your moderator, Ms. Tia Smedley.
So I take it it's my turn to speak with that introduction. All right. Let's start off by giving some applause to the National Museum for African American Music for another Sips and Stanzas. Yes. And I get to introduce our panelists. And I'm starting with this person right here. Shannon Sanders has the kind of list of accomplishments that truly makes you wonder if he's somehow been blessed with more hours in the day than the rest of us. Nationally, he's best known for his 2 Grammys. Let's pause for a moment. 2 Emmys. We're going to pause for another moment. And Dove Award. But in Music City, the place that is perhaps the most fitting for his resume, Shannon holds an endless list of titles and positions. Not only is he the founder and program director of Nashville Scene's 2018 Best Soul Radio Station, pick 102.1 FM, The Ville, and a national trustee of the Recording Academy, Shannon is also a city commissioner for the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation, a board member of the Nashville Ballet, a member of Phi Mu Alpha Sinfonia Incorporated, and he was one of the music industry leaders selected for Leadership Music's class of 2017. If you were to ask people to describe Shannon Sanders, words like super producer, he's worked with India Ari, Johnny Lang, John Legend, Robert Randolph, just to name a few. Gifted musician, he served as co-musical director for India Ari and Fisk Jubilee Singers Annual Spring Sing at the Ryman for several years. Amazing vocalist, he was a main stage artist at Nashville's 2018 July 4th celebration. Visionary and mentor. are what you would probably hear most. But if you were to ask Shannon how he sees himself, he'd probably say, hungry. His loyalty to the music scene at large, his passion for the growth and development of artists, along with his steadfast commitment to both the local and international music community, make it easy to understand why he's such a progressive individual. What he's already done, he's thankful for, but it's what he's yet to accomplish that is his creative fuel and driving force. Ladies and gentlemen, please show your love to the one, the only Shannon Sanders. Are you ready for the next panelist intro? You ready for this? Caroline Randall Williams. Beautiful. 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 And she is the author of Soul Food Love, The Diary of B.B. Bright, Possible Princess, and Lucy Negro Redux. Part savvy lit crit, part blues chart, part imagine interracial romance, saga disguised as poems. Lucy Negro Redux explores themes of love, otherness, equality, and beauty by invoking Shakespeare's mysterious Dark Lady. Working in collaboration with Paul Vasterling, artistic director of Nashville Ballet, Lucy Negro Redux has also been translated to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please show your love one more time for Sister Caroline.
Yeah.
Who told y'all to switch seats? So, the next panelist that I get to intro is someone I know all too well. Remarkable person. Ladies and gentlemen, Shawn Whitsell. Shawn Whitsell is an actor, director, playwright, a brother of mine. I had to slide that in there. And poet. He is founder of the Destiny Theater Experience and a mentor with Southern Word. He has received a number of awards in recognition for his works in the arts, including the NAACP 45 Leaders Under 45, Stay on the Go 40 Under 40 Award, and the First Night Star Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sir Shawn Whitsell.
Sir Shawn. He's knighted. He's Sir Shawn. I like that. That's good.
And finally, I know this person too quite well. Princess Constance Bynum. Constance Bynum has performed her poetry at TEDx Nashville, the Skirmerhorn Symphony Center, War Memorial Auditorium, Oz Arts, and Cheekwood. She emerged through Southern Words workshops, performances, and slams. She focuses much of her writing on further understanding mental health issues. She is presently a student at APSU, Austin Peay State University. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, please join me in welcoming our entire panel: Shannon Sanders, Caroline Randall Williams, Shawn Whitsell, and Constance Bynum. All right. Y'all ready to get this show started?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a whole lot of knowledge on this panel, and we don't have a whole lot of time. We're going to dive right in. Nice big question. How did you get to where you are today? Who would like to take that? Big question. How did you get to where you are?
I think that Constance needs to answer since she's the spoken word baby, since she's the Southern word baby. You need to tell us how you got at this table with all of us. It's so exciting. The children will lead us.
Okay, take this one. Well, obviously, I guess the blunt answer is I was asked. But I would say through the help of like a nice, strong support system, a support system that involved my mom, Southern Word peers, as well as mentors, and like, of course, poetry, I would say.
Good, good. And so, okay, great. You answered my next question regarding support. Who motivated you?
Well, my mom, because I feel like she's the best person that ever existed. And she has definitely had her share of a lot of things. And I've never seen her use it as an excuse. I've never seen her use it as a reason not to try. And up until like November of the past year, when someone she really cared about died, I had never even seen my mom cry. So she was someone that's very, very strong, and so it's just like, I want to be like that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Next. How did you get to where you are?
Well, I love hearing Constance speak of her mother, because my mom is probably the answer too. I had the insane privilege of being raised by a black woman who was making a living as a writer in Nashville, Tennessee, when I was born. So I knew that you could make a living as a black writer in the city, because I was raised watching a woman do that.
Love that.
And do it really well. In unexpected genres, she wrote country music. She was the first black woman to write a #1 country song. And let me tell you, my mom was born in Detroit. My grandfather was like a Black Panther. And when she told him that she was moving to Nashville, Tennessee to write country and Western music, that conversation went weirdly.
Right.
But, he just told her, be excellent. And so she had a lot to be excellent about, or she had a lot to prove to him, and she proved it. And I also was raised, figuring out how to do something good with your privilege. If you can't help but have it, you can't help the things you were born with access to. What you can do is figure out how to use them to give platform to other people. And so, my great-grandfather was the writer in residence at Fisk. Arna Bontemps. He was a Harlem Renaissance poet. He was librarian at Fisk. I was raised knowing that you could make black art a life. And so that's how I got here, was that I had the crazy luxury of knowing that I could. And then I was talking to Shannon about this before we sat down. I moved to Mississippi when I was 22 to teach public school for 2 years in the Delta in Sunflower County. And I realized that I really needed to make it my life. I needed that my thing that I could do is bear witness and tell people stories and see the unseen and articulate that and bring that into the world and figure out how to honor those narratives. So that's how I got here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we all, know everyone on this panel is gifted with the pen. And
I put mine on. Is that, like I said, I was raised by like old bougie black ladies. Like, you put your pen on. If they give you a pen, you gotta put it on.
Put it on.
I think you're on to something. I think maybe we need a nice decorative pen that we can rock. But you can put. I'm not talking about that pen, y'all.
Sorry.
All the poets on the stage.
Right.
PENPIN.
So, thinking about that and in understanding how much of a labor it is and a love that it is, who did you lean on in times when maybe it felt more like labor?
Yeah. I think that the most important thing that you can do as an artist is know what you're not capable of when you're in a crisis, and then when you're in a good place, make sure that you have pulled people that are your resources to you, so that when you are floundering, you can say, remember when I told you that I screw up all of these things in this capacity when things are going wrong? Can you come in and do that thing you promised me in this moment? Can I be honest with you about how I'm gonna fail if you don't help? And make sure you set up your system so that you don't fail. And part of that is telling people in moments when you are functioning, you have to know yourself well enough to say, I fail at this when I am under duress.
Yeah.
And then say, and I need to know that if I am under duress, you're going to believe me and not let me fail at this if I say that call. And I might be too proud to tell you anything past. Remember that conversation we had? Can you come?
Right.
And so I have a whole system of girlfriends, family members who I have done the work of saying, I know where I fail at things when I can't do it by myself. And I have a whole system. Like, I moved in October, and y'all, it was arduous. It was like a total, and like 7 of my girlfriends, just night and day. I was like, y'all, I just need you in here. I don't know how I'm going to repay you, but I need you to unpack. I need you to Lysol wipe. I need you to like vacuum and move things and unpack them and hang them, because I'm still teaching. I haven't quit my job. Like, I haven't, I need you to help me with this. And I asked you before, and I think one of the things that's so hard, because we've always been told work 3 times as hard to have what you want. Like, we know about the tax, but we also have the luxury of insane loyalty, and everyone around us has crazy fortitude, and we all need to call in favors sometimes. So it's like just setting up your systems of people that you can ask, and then but really being willing to come back for them too. But that's what I lean on.
Good, very good. Okay.
Amazing.
Somebody else.
Mr. Shannon.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you get to where you are?
Ooh. There's an old gospel song that says, up the rough side of the mountain.
Okay. Talk
You
to
know,
us.
I think the hardest part for me was just acknowledging the gift. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing. It's one thing, it's funny. I was riding down West End 20 years ago, and I saw, how churches have the thing out front with quotes on them or whatever the thought of the week is.
Yeah.
I was going down West End in this church. Never forget it. It said, faith makes things possible, not easy. And that's exactly what it's been. It's that faith, and wherever I've needed to apply it, first and foremost in myself, in that way. Like, can I really do what it is that I'm thinking I can do? Is it really possible? And at whatever point I got the confirmation, like it was just blaring in myself. It's possible if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to if you're of the realization that, you're a diamond, but the thing is, when a diamond comes out of the ground, it's a rock, and you got to burn it. You got to purify it. You got to sculpt it. So when we look at our gifts that way, like if I'm willing to do the work, it's the thing that church folks call the anointing. It's the thing that really you're given at birth. Gives you a thing. Now, whether or not you're going to purify it, if you're going to put it to fire, and that's learn as much as you can and really be loyal to the work and do that part of it, that was the come up for me. And it still is. I tell folks, like, that's always my greatest challenge, is me versus me. Can I be a better version of myself on this project versus the last? What did I learn from the last about not only music, but about myself? What can I do better this time? Even if it's just the way I communicate with people I'm working with, how can I be better this go around? And so that's, it's funny because you say, as soon as you ask the question, how'd you get here? And the thing that rang out in my mind was, well, where's here? You know what I mean? Because I'm not where I'm trying to get. So where is here? Because I'm not there in my mind. So where is here? So here, I can tell you how I got here, and it's definitely been by that. It's been by everything that everybody else has talked about. Support system, and that really started with my family. Them being, having creative people in my family that just understood. That just didn't think you were weird, or just didn't think it was an unrealistic dream. That really saw it in you, and at the point that I acknowledged it, just said, okay. Kind of been waiting on you to say that, so go ahead. I'll tell you this, and then I'll stop talking. I remember my grandfather was everything to me, and before he passed, he was pastoring the church in Chattanooga, actually. So, I was doing a lot trying to get this music thing popping, and I was on the road a lot between here and Atlanta, and young and trying to start a family and doing all these things, and so, he didn't really. It's not that he disagreed, but he wanted me to play it safe. But at whatever point, I told him, like, hey, man, it's just what it is, and this is what it is. Like, if I don't try, I'll never know. And so he understood that. And I'll never forget one time on my way to Atlanta, broke. I don't know if I can say that, like, broke. I just jumped on the road because there was an opportunity in Atlanta. I'm talking about, barely I had gas enough to get there, but I didn't have enough money to get back.
To get
Preach.
Or eat. None of that. But I had friends down there. I knew that there were some couches. And I knew once I got down, I could dig in them couches and rustle up some change. I probably, it was going to be some bologna meat and maybe some old bread around. You know what I mean? But I knew what I could do. And if I could get to Atlanta, I know that there's an opportunity for me to do what I do. So that's all I got to do is get there. So on my way to Atlanta, I stopped in Chattanooga and I find him. Like I said, he was a pastor. Got off, and the church was on the way to the house. So I swung by the church, and there he was. Somebody was doing something on the roof of the church. He's standing outside. Pull up on him. What are you doing? This and that. He knows me. My grandparents raised me. He knew me too well, right? So he asked me all the right questions that I didn't realize he was asking me until maybe 10 years later. He's like, run me to the house. Okay. So we went to the house. He's like, hey, man, some food in there, man. He's like, man, I made it. You take all that if you want it. Okay. Hey, man, there's this and this, man. You can take it if you want it. If you need. And right before I left, he gave me a hug, but he shook my hand, which was weird because he just hugged me. But he shook my hand, and when he shook my hand, he gave me a $100 bill that was folded up. He pulled out his wallet that was just in there for emergencies. You know what I mean? And so what that told me is that he believed in me enough to say, hey, that does just help you on your journey. I believe in you, and I believe in where you're going, and do that. So that was the come up. That's how I got here, was that, those people that believed in me and loved me. And, and then, the application of a lot of elbow grease.
Love that. Love that. Shawn
It's on me.
Whitsell, it's on you. How did you get to where you are today? Who was your support? Who did you lean on when the mountain was rough?
Yeah, a lot of things and a lot of people got me to where I am today. I can say the ancestors whose shoulders I stand on.
Thank you.
Come on.
My faith in a higher power. Both of my grandmother's prayers. My mother's love and sacrifice. And just coming from a family who saw my gift, saw my hard work as a child, and always told me that I could do anything. Both my mother and my father's side of the family, they always encouraged me, and then my church. So I grew up thinking that anything was possible for me to accomplish because the village that was around me saw that, saw my gifts. They saw what I wanted to be, and probably a lot of things that I didn't even see. And they encouraged me, and they continue to do that. When I went off to college, they gave me a great send-off. And I'm not just talking about a party. I'm talking about, prayers and strong words of encouragement that I still remember to this day, and I still get to this day. And I know that everything that I don't do it without them.
Yeah.
So I carry them with me in spirit and in my heart. And when I need to, I go home and let them fill me up. Then I go back out there.
Yeah.
So I'm here because of them.
Love it.
Tia, and you know
Yes.
what, and not even to butt in, but there's an emerging theme that of support early on.
Yes.
There's a quote I love that says, "Courage starts with encouragement."
Yeah.
So all of us, it sounds like as children, we're encouraged
Yeah.
to be ourselves or to dream, you know. And I think that's what I just learned just now or that was reinforced within me, is
Yeah.
that how important it is, you know, how important education is and encouragement is of young people to dream,
Yeah.
you know, to believe in them. So that's it.
Thank you for that. All right. As a creative, Constance, I'm coming for you. Does your process involve precise planning? Or do you let your mind flow? You just let things come? Do you get a download?
I would say it's a very important balance of both. And I say that because if I have learned that when I tried to force something or force myself to write something that maybe I thought I was ready to write and I wasn't, it didn't come out right, or it came out totally different. And then I guess that's also where the whole just letting it flow comes into, because then oftentimes it would turn into something that I didn't want it to be. But it also does have to be precise, because there is, like, you know, you have to understand how as a poet, you have to know how certain sounds flow together, how fast you can say this, when to slow down, when what you want to say and how you want it to hit. So yeah, I would say it's a very important balance of both. It's not one or the other.
Good. What about you, Mr. Whitsell?
For me, I think I love having the space to be able to be free and to flow. I feel like that's where I'm at my best. But sometimes, especially me being a director and being a producer, as far as the theater is concerned, there are deadlines and logistical things that I have to take into consideration sometimes. So it just really depends on the situation. I like being able to have to let things flow, but I've learned, especially through working with Southern Word too, just the importance of planning sometimes. And so it's like Constance says, sometimes it's a balance of both, just depending on the situation and what it calls for.
Good. Same question to Shannon and Caroline. Are you all more precise with your creative process and planning, or do you lean more towards letting it flow?
I'm taking this one. This is my better side, so it's easier to lean this way. I'm playing. I'm not playing. The brain's a muscle. I tell this to my students in workshop the same way anything else is. And you would never, in a game, squat down and then crab walk, shuffle diagonally across a basketball court to the half line and then back the other way, right? You wouldn't do that kind of zigzag. You wouldn't run suicides in a game, right? You wouldn't do pick drills in a game.
Nice.
But you do that and practice with your full effort and rigor, so that when it's time, you can improv. So when you're playing, you can respond, so your muscle memory is there. So I do a lot of drills with myself that I don't ask anything of my creative voice. And part of that's teaching. I teach, and teaching is a creative drill for me. You know, reteaching. I'm teaching Hamlet right now I don't even know how many times I've taught Hamlet. And I'm also teaching a bunch of Langston Hughes poetry in a blues class. I'm teaching Warsaw Shire's book, Teaching My Mother How to Give Birth, another class. I've taught all those books a million times. I've every time I come up with some different thing, I'm gonna force my students to write about for one paragraph, right? Because me thinking about what to ask them does good work for me, because I think that art's important. And And I don't know how to force myself to write a poem, but when it comes, I need to have been doing the work in my brain so the muscles are strong.
Yeah.
So that, because I'm sort of this is the nerd in me. I'm my poems emerge Athena, like Zeus, like she came from Zeus's head fully formed. Like either it's done when it comes out or it's not happening. Like I'm not like a revision person.
Yeah.
And which makes me a bad teacher because most teachers are like revise, edit. I'm like, I don't know anything about that. Like either it comes out done or it's not happening. But it comes out done because I practice in these other ways. Mm-hmm. And so I like to be ready by keeping that muscle exercised. And I do that through teaching. But it is an imprecise science in how it happens. It is a very precise science in like how I visit it afterward.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Nice.
That's good. She's touching on something that is very, very important to me, which is creativity being a muscle. I say that all the time. I say it all the time. Hashtag no days off. I mean it. I'm talking about Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthday, about none of that. I'm in the studio every day because I feel like if I was a professional athlete and my workout schedule is Thanksgiving, but my workout schedule would not say Thanksgiving, it would say Thursday. That's it. And so I treat my creativity like a muscle, and I must acknowledge it, I must stretch it, I must do it at some point every day, or my attitude will be bad. And I've learned this about myself, and it's true. So, and the other part of that is the difference between the talent or the gift and the skill. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. You can learn a skill. How well you learn a skill, a lot of that has to do with your passion, I think, and then we have our gifts. But there's no real set way for me. How it happens, it happens. The producer part of me, there's the writer, but then the producer part of me likes to get a fast start, even on the writing, because then I give myself more time to be creative. I give myself time to love it or hate it. And if I get a fast start on something, it's like, we're gonna make this record, fast start, let's get it going today. Let me just brain dump and see what's there, put it in the car and see if I like it. If I hate it, then I got time to revise, because I don't want to lie to myself. I don't want to talk myself into liking it. Nothing. I need to genuinely love it, or else it won't. If I don't, then nobody else will. But by the time I go way down the road and somebody else hears it, if I play it for you, I'm pretty confident in it. And that's the thing. I need to have time to be able to do that. Another thing I just want to say real quickly about production, I tell folks is like, the talent versus the skill. I think the talent is in designing the car. Mm-hmm. The production, if you will, if you think mass production, like auto plant. Folks be like, man, you're in the middle of 20 songs all the time. Like literally, I'm probably in the middle of 20 songs right now. Mm-hmm. And it's not as overwhelming as it sounds because they're in different phases of production. Like you got one that's just coming off, here it comes, and it needs the chassis. This one needs the motor. Yeah, but I got one that's about to come out the dryer in the paint booth and about to go straight on the truck. So it's not stressing out the line. It's just a line. As long as everything stays. This one has got to keep itself moving. So that's the thing. One is always being born, but there's always one that's graduating at the same time.
Nice.
So that's production. But yeah, so I would say there's no necessarily set way. Have inspiration comes. I'm like her. Like how it comes out. I want to see the raw. So I have time to say it's a little too fast, a little too slow, a little too high, a little too low, give myself time to get it right.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Thank you all for the creative process. If you had to start over, would you choose a different career path? Caroline.
No. If I had to start over, I would have been more confident in the path that I did choose, because I've come back to it anyway. We were just talking about this again before the panel. I've always, my poetry was in some ways, it has been the ask and the answer. It's been the call and the response. It's been everything that it's given me all of the things that I wanted from a life in art, but not in the way that I expected. And so I guess I wouldn't do anything differently, But I think, except for proceeding with more confidence, which I think is a truth that especially, I mean, I know for all young people and all women and all Black people, but Black girls in particular are my wheelhouse. And I think that we struggle in some ways uniquely to be sure that what we're doing feels right, sounds right, is going to be received right in the world, and that people who have the power to say yes will say yes. And so I retreated from my art because I didn't trust the world to say yes to it. And so I said, okay, well, I know ways that I can trust the world to say yes to me that are more teaching based or more practically oriented. And I'm just so grateful. The ballet has actually just yielded so many things, because I wrote this little baby book while I was still living in Mississippi that has snowballed into this unbelievable thing that's being reviewed well in the New York Times. And you're kind of going, oh my God, right? But thank you, yay. But the point is that I think I would do it exactly the same, except for that I would have been less afraid of my own joy, and I would have been a little bit more confident in the world being able to lift up something that because when Shannon said, it's amazing to me, you said, if I show you something, I'm pretty sure it's good already. That is a totally foreign notion to me. I have never felt that in my life. If I'm showing you something, I trust you to be a barometer because I have no idea what the world's going to do with it. And now what I have is empirical evidence that the world receives what I do well. And then I'm not crazy, and so I assume I must be okay at it.
It's the same thing, though. Yeah, but that's the thing. I'm not saying I expect you to love it, but I'm confident enough, like I feel good enough to present it.
And I want to get there. That's what I'm saying. I admire that disposition, because for me, mine is all externally driven still, because you just are so weary of... I mean, it's not because I don't think what I do is good, but it's unclear what of it the world is going to receive and what of it the world is not going to be prepared to hear yet. Do you know? Because you're like, oh, the world's not ready for that, or that's too hard, or that's too stern, or that's too militant, or that's too wild, or that's too honest.
So what do you do?
Well, you just keep working into it. You keep working into it, and you keep finding people that you trust who are going to give you platforms and space, and keep fighting for that. But I think that I didn't. So I guess my only thing that I would do differently is manifest that confidence earlier. But you can't. But so manifest it earlier.
That's good. I want to ask you, Shawn, how do you know when a piece of work or project is finished and needs no additional work? Shannon kind of hinted to that aspect of his process with, the last question.
For me, whether it's a poem or a script, it's really just about how it makes me feel. I mean, there's always things that you can nitpick at and go back and change. And I love the idea of knowing that even after I present this, if I want to make a change to it 10 years later, it's my piece to be able to do so. So sometimes you see things at different points, like sometimes I've definitely changed plays before. Sometimes once you present them, whether it's a piece, a poetry piece, or a script that has been produced into a play, and you see how the audience reacts to it. Sometimes other ideas pop up. So in one sense, I'm never stamping done on anything, even though it may be done, even though that may be the final iteration of it. I don't know. Something might strike me in the future that makes me want to change, and I have the power to do so. But generally speaking, it's about how it makes how this piece makes me feel. Can I tell a funny story?
Please do.
I don't know if it's funny or not, but I tell this sometimes. So I had written this play, and it was like one of the earlier pieces that I had written that I was able to showcase here in Nashville. And I was extremely proud of it because it got great reviews and it was so well received by the community. It just kept growing. Like I saw people talking about it on social media, and it just the word just spread about this piece, and it was, and the final night was sold out, and it was just so much great energy in the room, and so many people talked about it and wrote me like I was getting fan mail, like letters, not like an inbox. I'm getting letters, and people were paying me. I think I was charging $10 to get in this play, and people were sending me checks for bigger, you know, even after they had paid the 10. So it was a really, surreal experience for me. And so when I went into writing my other play, I wrote it in the shadow of this great success. And it was kind of, on one hand, it was inspiring. On the other hand, I was just like, oh, can I do this again? Will people like it? So I wrote this play, and I loved it. I felt good about it. And then I just knew, something was, I don't know if I knew something was missing, but I just, it wasn't a cherry on top. And I had this idea, I had this dream that that Tyler Perry, that I went out to dinner with Tyler Perry, and he told me to change this ending. And he told me exactly what to change it to.
You had a real dream.
A real dream.
Okay.
Like I fell asleep. Tyler Perry hovered over me. I was like, bro, you need to change this ending.
Right. Okay.
And so, but the ending that I wanted, that was given to me in this dream, was like, oh, that's gone. Should I do that? Are people going to receive that well? That's not the kind of happier ending that I've already had. Am I going to ruin my piece? And so I sought out some counsel through some friends that I trusted, and they were like, if that's what you feel led to do, then don't worry about don't worry about people's reaction to it. Do what you have been inspired to do. And for me, that was inspiration. I love the idea. I don't know where it came from, but I am so glad that I made that change before it was presented to the public, because it was a risk. And it was already after the piece that I considered the piece done, and then something else struck me, and I made the change, and I'm so happy I did it, because people were like, that ending to that play, I didn't see it coming.
Now, look, I'm going to tell you something, Shawn, build on what you're talking about was crazy. Tyler and I have a mutual friend, right? This brother has an amazing business built in Atlanta, some music business, and he said that Tyler called him one morning. He said, I had a dream about you. Tyler had a dream about him in the same way, and told him that he was dreaming too small, that his vision was too small, and that God told him to tell him to dream bigger and to manifest bigger. And I'm talking about he did bigger, and it is bigger. So it's crazy, because that is truly the spirit of what that is. That's crazy.
Well, tell your friend to tell Tyler.
I'm going to tell him, like, hey, man.
Let me send a picture of myself to your friend.
Right.
He can send it to Tyler so Tyler can dream about me.
Right.
Because I'm
He's going to see folks at night like Ebenezer Scrooge. Tyler Perry just going to seeing folks.
Tyler Perry is the main.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Tyler Perry's the ghost of Christmas future.
We're gonna have a whole new Medea series based on this right here.
It was Tyler. It was Tyler. And and my work is very different from Tyler's work. But no, I'm just. I'm not.
His path, though. His path is amazing.
Most definitely, I was defending Tyler on Facebook a couple of days ago.
I defend him all the time, but it's still complicated.
But yes. But I say that to say only that even though our work, our styles of theater is very different, I certainly trusted that word from Brother Tyler. I felt like he was sent from the Lord.
Right, from the Lord. And it obviously was. And it's been confirmed.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that said, that's a perfect segue into do you all pay attention to other strong reactions to your art? Does it affect how or what you create?
I'm so sorry. Will you frame that question?
Do you pay
There
strong?
was talk.
Do you all pay strong attention, or do you pay attention to other strong reactions to your art, to your work? And how does that affect what or how you create?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let me answer that one. So I've been in DRE's musical director since pretty much the beginning. And so her first record, Acoustic Soul, was a whirlwind. I'm talking about like when it came out. Long story short, first run we did a little promo run in Europe, 3 weeks, right? We played in London, sold out show. Had no idea Sade was there. So we came home and we get a phone call. The first tour we do in the US, like real tour, 47 cities with Sade. So the first real stages we hit in the United States were like arenas.
Yeah.
So it created this whole thing. Like it was just crazy. So that lasted for a while, like, you know, it's maybe a 3-4 month tour. And then it was just on. You look up and it was the Grammys, and then we happened to be in LA playing the show the week of the Grammys, and somebody fell out, and then we played the Grammys, and then she loses all 7.
Yeah. We remember that.
Yeah. And so
Remember that. Yeah.
the crazy part is, now give me back to the question, because that just took me down a rabbit hole. And I was just like, oh, I was a whole nother place. What did you say, Tia? What's the question, Tia? Take me back.
The question was, do you
And I'll
pay
take it away.
attention to others' strong
Yeah, okay,
reactions
cool. I
to
got you.
your work?
Okay.
And then we went straight
Yeah,
to
okay, here we go, Tia. I got you.
the 7 Grammys.
So here we go.
Okay.
But now, here's what I learned, though. Here's the thing. That whole tour, that's what I wanted to tell you. Like, that's why I set that up. That whirlwind tour
Yeah.
was so crazy because the second record, she lost all 7 Grammys, but we won the next time because we went and reloaded and did that next record in like 3 months. And it was crazy. And then that was the one that won the Grammy the next year. What was crazy about that is we were writing those songs on the road because we just didn't have time to stop. And so I was very much so paying attention to the reactions. I was very much at the same time as our MD paying attention to the band. What was hard for us to perform? Which ones are we speeding up? It's slow on the record, but we speeding it up live. Or you got us taking it up a half a step live because when adrenaline kicks in, you go somewhere else. Okay, cool, got it. So we went back in the studio the second time. Take it up a half a step. It's not comfortable. It's gonna be comfortable live. That's because the adrenaline kicked in. Let's go. Let's figure that out because when live, you're gonna thank me that it's a half a step, whole step higher. When you hear that, something kicks in. And as you get that rush, and that's when you want it to be a little higher. That's when you want to shout at the top of your lungs.
Yeah.
And so we push tempos and we push keys the second record. That's what we want.
Do you pay attention to other strong reaction?
As a poet, yes, because when you hear that snapping, it's just kind of like, okay, cool, you're here. You with me, you feel me, I'm here. And when it's dead silent, you're just kind of like, I don't know if people are taking this the right way. I don't know if they're catching what I'm saying. So I will say yes, I do pay attention to people's response. But I wouldn't say like, yes, I pay attention. Yes, it affects how, but it does not affect what I write because I feel like I am saying something that needs to be said. And as an advocate for mental health awareness, especially in the Black community, when oftentimes people, parts of my extended family included, consider mental health like a white person's problem. Black people don't deal with that. So I feel like it needs to be said, but I am learning on my delivery that, the little country cliche, you catch more flies with honey. So I would say, yes, I pay attention to how, but I don't allow that to dictate what I say.
Thank you. Shawn and then Caroline.
So I'm going to say yes. A quick story. Hopefully it's quick. When I was a senior in high school, I was in a program called Upward Bound. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. And so Upward Bound, a trio. So my final, after our senior year, I went on. They took us on a trip, the end of the summer trip. The summer before my senior year. That's what it was. So I was 17, or 16, 17, yeah. So they took us we went to Gulf Shores and we saw this play there in Alabama, and it was To Kill a Mockingbird. And so I'm watching it, enjoying the play, and then the scene where they sentenced Tom Robinson, and so you have the black people, the black actors playing the black people in the play are on the balcony because black people couldn't be down on the floor. And so when they're walking him out, the lights dim and this spotlight hits this black man, and he stands up and he sings this heart-wrenching gospel song. And I'm in my seat like, the 5 heartbeats when he was singing to the girl, and she was like this. I'm like crying, like it's just, it was so many, and I didn't even know that moment just pulled me in and grabbed me by the heart. Yeah. And I pledged, that's, when I walked out of there, I said, that's the type of work I wanted to do. I knew I always wanted to be on stage, and I had been on stage throughout my entire childhood. But right when that moment, and I'm not even, the whole play was great, but that moment right there when that man sang that gospel song, it took me to another place. And I knew that I wanted to do more than just entertain people. I wanted to touch people's souls. I wanted to touch people's hearts. I wanted to transform people. And I think the arts has an incredible way of doing that. And so I definitely pay attention to reactions to my work because that's a part of that's a part of my mission is for people to feel what it is that I'm putting out there. So
I'll be brief and say, of course I pay attention. I think like Constance, it does inform how I deliver things more than it informs what I'm generating. And it informs like what I choose to perform. I went to an MFA. I'm the first black poet to go through the University of Mississippi's creative writing program, which I did in 2012, if that, was crazy. So, mostly I've had to cancel noise, like, and sort of actively ignore other people's reactions to my work because I hadn't the faintest idea if they had, if some nice white boy from Michigan is telling me that my poem doesn't make sense, I'm like, oh, never mind. And by never mind, I mean never you mind. Right. Not like me never mind writing. Like, never you mind. Hey, I'm going to carry on with what I'm doing without regard for your concerns.
I get it.
So I've had this really interesting balance of peer reactions being strong. And then on the other side, I have a really amazing mother and I write poems that tell like literally everything. And my mom's like, this is really hard for me to read. And she has really strong reactions that way. And that's been complicated. And one of the hardest things in my adult life has been not sharing my art with my mother until I feel like it is, you asked done versus finished. Sometimes I just don't let her see it until I'm like, you can say what you want because nothing's changing. And that's the question of done versus finished. When you're finished, I'm done with this. Doesn't mean that it's all gone. Right. It just means I'm done eating. Right. So like you can be done with the work or you can revisit it. Like I'm done with this. I'm putting it in the box for leftovers. Finished means it's gone. It's over. Right. Like if a relationship is finished, it's over. If we're done here, that means the conversation's done for the night. Right. So it's an interesting balance of those two things, done versus finished. I think poems are never finished. Probably works of writing art are never finished. They're just done at different points. Yeah. It's like they're well done and then, or they're medium and then they're well done or whatever. But anyway, all of that to say, people's opinions matter, but mostly, I tell my students in workshop, I don't care about your feelings unless they are articulated well and artfully. Like, I mean, a human to human I do, but we're not, and I'm not a therapist, we're in school, I'm a professor. And so if you have articulated your feelings badly, I don't care about them. If you're like, well, this is how I felt in that moment, like, well, you didn't make me feel that. You made me feel like you wrote a bad self-indulgent poem. So you need to say your feelings in a way that makes me feel your feelings.
Okay.
Because this is artwork.
Yeah.
And so I tell them that, and and that I think is important. But that's that.
Teaching them the work.
Tia, real quick, I got to speak.
Go ahead.
I tell folks all the time, listen, we know each other, so this is just
Yeah.
It's crazy because, I say all the time that, it's important for us as creatives to not paint portraits. Don't hang up portraits of ourselves, that's what you're saying, but hang up mirrors so that other people see themselves reflected in what we do.
Hold a mirror up to nature. Shakespeare said that.
See that? So that is super important because you take something like the Mona Lisa, one of the most famous paintings of all time, hang it up in the back of the room right now. I might stand there and look at it for about 4 or 5 minutes, you know what I mean? Wow, I'd appreciate it for what it is. But listen, you might sit, I'm gonna sit in the mirror 25 minutes and bow my head out, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Honestly, so that's the thing. So people look in mirrors way longer than they look at portraits. Indeed. Unless they're of themselves. So that's why it's important for us as creatives to create mirrors that people see themselves reflected in what we do. And now, you know what, Madam Moderator? Because for those of you that don't know, she is quite the talent. I think that that's a question that's appropriate for you, is about these reactions, Madam Moderator. I would be really interested, given all of your experience, how you feel about that.
And the tables have turned. Thank you, Shannon Sanders.
Should have been on the panel anyway.
Oh, okay. How do I feel about reaction? Does it matter? If I did not define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies about me and be eaten alive. Okay. I'm quoting a poet. I'm quoting...
Is that Lucille?
No. Audre Lorde.
It's up.
Audre Lorde. I'm quoting Audre Lorde. And there is a balance for me. There is a balance for me. And if I could just be transparent about myself and my art, I have to take all of that into consideration for myself. My artistic process is not often one that is very precise and planned. It is more free. It is something that I have to allow to come. I regard it as such a gift. I'm gifted with creativity. I'm a portal. So I respect it to that degree. That doesn't mean that I don't hone the craft. It doesn't mean that it isn't practice. But as far as people's reaction to it, when I'm gifted with something, I know that I am a bullhorn, I'm a shofar, I'm a trumpet. I have to sound. I could care less about what you have to say. My duty is to deliver. What happens after that is none of my business. Now, if we're talking business-wise, then yeah, there are some other logistics. There's some other things that we got to rock with. If I'm trying to be a platinum selling spoken word artist, then it's different. If my goal is to be a New York Times bestseller, then it's different. Right now, for me, I am where I am. It is what it is, and I'm walking. I'm putting one foot in front of the other. And I have had to learn to not bow to other people's opinion. But that's my personal experience. And so I've had to carry my art the same way. I will not bow to your perception of me. I just am. Thank you for the question.
That was like a poem.
I told
too.
y'all.
I will not bow.
And now that we're back to our regularly scheduled program, before it was interrupted by Shannon Sanders,
My bad.
He knew
it's
what he was
all
doing.
love, all
You did the
fam.
right thing. You did right. We needed to hear that.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
We did.
I want to ask, you then, Shannon, since tit for tat. What do you wish you would have known about the industry when you started? What wisdom or advice would you like to pass on to the world?
You know, it's funny because there's always that taboo thing. Folks, you hear folks, sell your soul. You sell your soul to the devil. You understand that? And it's crazy because then you get in the game. The funniest thing for me was somebody said at one time, they made reference to something, and then they talked about the industry, but then made reference to me being in the industry. And I was like, well, dang it. When did that happen? And there's always that point when you realize, like, okay, I guess I did something mainstream.
Yeah.
And it's funny when it happens because, you're just doing your thing, and then it's like, at some point with the thing you've been doing just happens to jump on the rails. It'll jump back off, but then it jumps back on. And it's funny because it's like, wow, I just never thought of myself as that. Okay, well, if that's what it is, then let me really be conscious of that and really think about how I'm representing that and what can I bring to that. But then you get in the game and you understand what that means. Your soul just simply being your essence, your fiber, your moral fiber, the things that are important to you. So to sell your soul just means that for somebody to give you some money for you to compromise who you are,
Right.
For you to sell out your upbringing, or your value system. That's what that means. And so, that was the thing for me was like, I was never willing to compromise certain things. Somebody asked me, it's funny, I was interviewed yesterday and somebody was like, why'd you stay in Nashville, folks, and I told them, it worked out because the city's grown and it's become this amazing thing, but it was important to me to stay. I didn't want to go to Atlanta. I didn't want to go to LA. I didn't want to go to New York because I didn't want to sell out, if you will. I never wanted that to be up for grabs. So my whole thing was, it's, my way of bust, which is I'm just not willing to compromise on who I am. That's the thing. And so that's what I would tell somebody. Just know who you are, the whole way. And then that way, it's just never up for question. I see artists all the time. I'm dealing with that one right now. There's an artist I'm working with, and, at every turn, labels like, well, do this, or cut your hair, change your style, wear these kind of clothes, and talk about this. And so for them to even consider that is just like, wow, so it's important for you to just be rooted. At some point you got to be able to be like, nah, it just ain't that deep. You know what I mean? Keep that check, and I'll just go find one that doesn't come with all the baggage. There's a check that, there's a check that's okay with me being me. So that's cool. So keep that. So that's the thing. Just don't compromise. Don't compromise on your value system. Don't give up who you are, what you believe in. Those you believe in. That's been a big challenge for me, man. My team is my team. You know what I mean? And so I want to bring my team. Sidebar, a lot of people don't realize when Wilma Rudolph went to the Olympics, that was the whole TSU team.
Yeah.
That wasn't just Wilma Rudolph. The TSU team won a gold medal. That's what that was about.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that where they take the best around the country till they lost at some point, but they just took whoever the best collegiate team at the time was. Wilma just happened to be the star of the TSU team. They took the whole team. So that's the thing. So that's my thing right now is like, I want you to see me. I want you to see my team, the people I've been rocking with, to see me, to see those I've been rocking with. So that's it. Just don't compromise on that. Don't sell out yourself. Don't sell out those that help you be there, and that be your family, your friends, or your support system. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Is there a particular part, Constance, of your creative process that you fancy most?
Since I am a spoken word poet, I guess the spoken part I fancy the most.
Like that.
Because spoken word is meant to be heard. It it's received better when it's heard. You know, the message gets across better. And because I like to try to be a voice for people who don't know how to speak about certain things or don't know how to bring the conversation up. And so it's just, that's the part I look forward to the most, knowing that, hey, what you said is valid, what you said is relatable, and what you said helped me. So, yeah.
Shawn, same question. Is there a particular part of your creative process that you look forward to the most?
Depends on what I'm doing. I feel like I'm the most talented as a writer than over anything else, over being an actor or a poet, a spoken word poet, a performer, a director. I feel like writing is what I'm most naturally gifted at. So I really enjoy the process when I'm in the pocket, when I'm writing. And I am, wherever I am with my laptop, I am in the zone, totally caught up in the work, and fully giving myself over to it, and not getting in the way of it. I used to have this thing where when characters spoke, I had to remind myself that the characters are not me, even though I'm the person writing them, so that whatever the characters say, look, I ain't say it. Tyrone said it, and if you don't like it, take it up with Tyrone. Like, he's a character. I have to be honest, and so that's why none of my characters, in my opinion, sound the same, because they're their own people. So I love it when I am in that pocket, where I'm in the zone, totally wrapped up in the work.
I love that. Thank you. We want to take a moment and allow our audience to ask any question you may have to any panelists you'd like. Do we have any audience questions? Yes.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here. It's been awesome. Shannon, I wanted to ask you, your song that just released, Fight On. You can tell us a little bit about what that means to you and what inspired you to write that.
Thank you. Fight On. It's funny because Fight On is something that probably lived on my hard drive for the last 7-8 years probably. And, it's funny because, I got to think that, and you may even know, Caroline, but I'd have to think that not everything that Shakespeare wrote was for public consumption originally. You know what I mean? There's some things that just start out as your journal. There's some things that we just write that are our journal, and they turn into work. And it's the same thing, So for me, music is at the same time journaling. I just happen to record. I just happen to make music. So the studio sometimes for me is the physical thing. It's the studio for me is this laptop computer. I can just sit there and just stream of consciousness, just hit record and go, And so I think Fight On was born. When I think back, I think as the game was shifting, as the music business was shifting, and as I was starting to feel it and watch friends of mine just start to, let it go and, decide to do other things, or people with options. I had friends that finished college and had a degree so they could go do other things. They could do safer things in the moment. For me, that wasn't an option, and it's something we talked about earlier that, maybe writing this up. We talked about too earlier, Caroline, about, quote I love that says, there's no plan B, only variations of A. So for me, that means, okay, if I'm today, I'm playing keys on this record tomorrow, I'm putting some folks together, putting a choir together, okay, cool, and then I'm producing a record, whatever, but there is no B. So I think it was that for me. I think it was just the feeling of that. It's like being on the Titanic, it never just, at that point, the greatest ship to ever, sail the seas. Whoever thought that the Titanic would go down, and that's how we felt about the music business. I'd been on panels and watched the heads of labels laugh at Napster and laugh at the internet and say they can't take us down. We selling CDs, so like hand over fist, we doing this, and they just never thought. And so to watch the Titanic sink is what it was. So it was just the feeling of being on the Titanic and deciding to, like, okay, am I gonna just be okay to drown?
Sink or swim.
Or am I going to try to grab hold of one of these dinghies? Or am I going to grab hold of anything floating and I'm going to hold on for dear life and frigid water until the next thing comes, but there is no B. I'm going to fight on.
Okay.
That's what it was.
All right. That's how you break down a song.
There's a question back there.
Go ahead, please.
I want to open this up to everyone at the table. How do you continue to be passionate about what you do? Tia, Shawn, you all are teachers. Shannon, you are in the industry, constantly working. Caroline and Constance, you all are constantly working. How do you stay passionate about what you do and not allow it to become a job or just something that you're just passionate about?
I'll say, I have been finding myself in spaces that require me to educate. I teach. It's what I do. I can't separate. And there have been moments where I have found myself very exhausted. And I have thought, okay, now I had to come over here and check these about this. And I had to check these about this and them about that. And here I am at home, and I have things going on with my children, and I have to check that and check that too. And what I have discovered is in those moments where I find myself feeling a bit overwhelmed, I realize, well, if I don't, who will? And this is the call. This is the call. And so what I do, I surrender. I surrender to it. And knowing that I am planting the seed, like I said before, you can plant. Now, what happens after that is out of your control, and that's okay. It's my duty to plant, though. And I know that where I'm planting, something's going to spring up. So I stay excited. There's something I expect to happen. It's not an if, it's a when. For me, it's a win and a win, right? That keeps me going, knowing this is a part of who I am. I'm a warrior. It's a part of my fight, so I fight on too. I used to need to put me on a remix.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, but I stay passionate, understanding that it is a call. I've surrendered to the call, and I'm okay. And there's a thing. There's a reaping. There's a reaping that comes from it. I'm all right with that.
We going down the lines.
I don't.
So for me, what keeps me passionate is life. Being able to observe and experience the things that I have, having the opportunity to teach and to work with young people will definitely keep you inspired or motivated to do something that's going to inspire them. I never saw myself, because teaching is just one aspect of several things that I do, and I never knew that would be the path that my career would take, because I was going to be a child star. I was watching the Cosby Show and Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, and Mike on TV, and everybody else. Rudy. I was like Rudy, everybody. Like, I was inspired by young people on TV, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so, but I'm from a small town in Kentucky where nobody is on TV. Nobody left that small town and is at the Grammys or working with India Ari or whatever. So I used to be afraid to tell people what it was that my dream was, to be an artist. I didn't think that was realistic, that people would think that was unrealistic. So I never, even though I was always on stage, always performing growing up, I never would tell anybody that I wanted to do that seriously because I was afraid of it. So I was afraid of people's reactions. I was afraid of being laughed at or being doubted, even though I came from a really supportive family and community, which is crazy. You know, it's crazy that I still felt like I would be judged. So to be in a position to where I get to interact with young people and let them know that their dreams are valid and their dreams can happen, I'm thankful for, because being a teacher has made me a better artist, has made me more conscious, has made me more aware. I teach spoken word, and there's some students that I run across that spit way better than me. And I'm glad I can be a part of their journey, and I learn from them. So so my passion comes from seeing people transform, seeing people reach their potential. And that makes me hungrier to do more.
For me, I would say it's simply writing about things I care about. I'm not going to waste my time trying to send a message that I don't believe in, something I'm not passionate for, a message that I won't die for. And then also I just try to make sure I continue to grow with my writing and let it, I improve with it. Like just because when I wrote this kind of way, people listen to it more or whatever, I don't keep writing that way, because it's just like, okay, that's where I was then, this is where I am now. Yeah. So I just make sure that my writing, my work, my performance is growing with me. That way it stays interesting, it stays new, it doesn't get too repetitive.
Nice.
I asked myself the same thing I asked myself when Teach for America asked me where I wanted to do Teach for America. They said, you can pick a region. And I thought, all my friends are moving to New York or Los Angeles, or San Francisco. So I should either pick LA or Oakland or Manhattan or Harlem, right? And then I thought, put your money where your mouth is, Caroline. If you're actually doing this to actually help people, then click that box that says send me to your highest need region. And I knew that if I did that, they were either going to send me to Mississippi or an Indian reservation in South Dakota, and probably Mississippi, because they really struggled to get black Corps members to go to Mississippi, because we don't want to go back.
Because it's Mississippi.
But I said, all right, put your money where your mouth is. And for me, the way that writing stays fresh and relevant is that I did this because, like I said, I came to bear witness. Who am I to say there are not more things to witness, more people's stories to tell, more people who feel othered or marginalized to give voice to? There are always people to witness. That work is always necessary, and it's always necessary to make art out of people's lives. And so I just try to put my money where my mouth is about my intention about being a writer. Yeah.
That's good.
He's got one.
Yeah.
How you stay passionate?
You're sitting there jotting down notes. I mean, I just have several thoughts about that question. I mean, that could go several ways for me. But the fact that I do music, I would say, I tell folks music is probably my first language. It's just always made sense to me, more so than English. In the beginning, before I understood words, I was just musically sensitive. It's funny, me and my mom talked about that the other day. She was just saying how she remembers one day, that's something that they realized about me early on. Like, you play a sad song, I'm going to cry. In a crib, I'm talking about a baby. They said, let's stand up and just cry. You put something sad or you put something happy on, I'm going to bounce, right? She said she was so pissed off at my dad because she'd been gone all day. She came back and she said I just seemed exhausted because he was just conducting this experiment on me all day. He just played sad music all day, and I was just exhausted from crying all day. So that being said, it's like, okay, this is the way I communicate. Like, music is my first language, right? So that's just how I talk. You know what I mean? And people communicate, you know what I mean? And so if that's the way I choose to communicate with you, like, this is the matrix to me, even sitting here right now. Like, for me to go to the studio, take this jacket off, and do my thing, and unbutton my collar, and just run, and then just being this wife beat I got on under here. That's me. You know what I mean? That's really me. So this is we talked about this is the grid for me. Even to sit here right now in the Renaissance is the grid for me, because it's not where I live. I live in a whole different alternative reality, to be honest with you. So I'm here. I check in and check out of, but that's not where I live. I'm here, and I'm loving. I'm grateful to be here, and I love to be able to come back from that and talk about what that is, to encourage others to be as free, to be able to take the same risk on themselves, which is just a dream. You know, just whatever that is, to just take chances on yourself, whatever that is. So that's what that is, and so that's what I'm passionate about. Is just authenticity is what I'm most passionate about. Is being an authentic voice. You know, when they read my bio, you know, to say that all the things that I'm doing, I tell somebody that today, like, it's important for me because what I know about myself is that I'll be an authentic voice. The way I'm talking to you right now is the way I'm gonna talk wherever. I was in the mayor's office today, talking the same way I'm talking to you right now, with the same rhythm in my voice. I'm gonna be me everywhere I go, and I think that's why I do a lot of these things. And I call to be a part of some of these different things is because I feel like I represent an authentic voice. I'm gonna tell you flat what it is, what this experience is, and that's just what it is. And I think that's what it is. So authenticity is very important to me, and I think that's what it is for me, to try to infuse as much of that authenticity into my first language, using my first language as possible. And I say authenticity, I'm talking about, you know, to be authentic as a black male in America, to be, you know, whatever, to be a father, like whatever those things, whatever that represents, you know, to be authentic, to be angry. You know what I mean? I got songs about just being pissed off, but I want to be authentic in that moment. How real can I be? And I think that's what drives me, is like, how close can I get to that? Like, how truthful can I be? How real can I be? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Writer's block, I'm gonna say real quick, you know, it made me think about a writer's block, like, it never happens. You know, I tell folks, you got a writer's block because it's an attempt to lie. If you got a writer's block, it's because you attempting to talk about something other than your reality. Now, I'm not saying you don't get stuck in crafting it. You know what I mean? Once you're honest with what that reality is, or what are you trying to say, now you might try to skill it a little differently. But the thing, you might lie to yourself about what that is, but you know what your truth is.
Yeah.
And so you got a block, a real genuine block, because you're trying to talk about something other than what is your actual experience, what is something other than what is true to you or what you really think or feel in that moment.
Yeah.
The truth is, it's dark outside. Okay, we can talk about that. Like, that's the truth. So why you block? You know what I mean? It's cold. Shit. Talk about that. You know, it's cold and it's dark. Let's talk about that. Like, so if that's, you know, now if we want it to be eloquent, now okay, now let me think about that and do a little research. That's different, but your truth is always available to you as subject matter, as a raw resource.
I love that. Go ahead.
I have a question for the whole panel. Who is your biggest artist inspiration? I know you kind of touched on like family and things like that, but who was your
Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder.
Shakespeare and Beyonce.
Dead serious. I have to think about that one.
Project Pat.
You have yours.
Real talk.
and it could be known or unknown?
Oh man, that is so difficult for me to answer. I will say someone who has really inspired me is an actor by the name of Jeffrey Wright. He is absolutely brilliant. I saw him on Broadway in 2002 in the play Top Dog Underdog. That man he transforms. So as an actor, I look at him because he gives himself, like, completely surrenders himself to his roles, and I think that is something that not just inspires me as an actor, but like as a writer. Like we talked about, surrendering yourself to the process, and I think he does that. So he's one of my inspirations.
Nina Simone. Felicia Rashad.
Oh, we naming multiples. Is that what we're doing?
Jill Scott. Sam Cooke, Donnie and Layla Hathaway. Who else speaks to me? I'm drawing a blank. What is it? The experiment.
Robert
Glasper.
Eartha Kitt and Billie Holiday are big ones for me. But Shakespeare and Beyonce my book wouldn't exist without them. So
Yeah.
it's just true. Lemonade was important for Lucy Negro.
Yeah.
For Beyonce, that first
I don't know as far as like music wise, if I have a favorite artist. It's not something I've ever thought about music wise, but I know poetry wise for sure. One, definitely for as long as I understood what embodies a poem was Maya Angelou. And I remember the first poem I ever read was Alone. And I remember looking at it like, this is a song. Like, I've never seen anything like this before. So, and then the first time I heard her speak, I was like, oh, so people like, you know, I was like, oh, so you can, it doesn't always have to be like this, da da da. And then spoken word wise, I would say it's a spoken word artist known as Kai Davis. I love her so much. I got to meet her when I was at Brave New Voices. That was awesome. And I would also say Rudy Francisco. And I listened to him a whole lot when I was learning like metaphors and how to show it and not just simply say it. So those are mine.
Yeah.
It's good. I said Stevie Wonder, and for so many reasons, I just stick on Stevie just because, I mean, what's dope about Stevie is, I really think back to all of, I know for me, like the Stevie music I love was the 70s, right? And he was just so prolific. I mean, it was almost like he was just pulling stuff like, hey man, we need a record. Okay, cool, here goes some songs. Like, it was, recording, and I try to live by that. Like, recording is a lifestyle. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, this is not my reality. Like, recording, like, that's my reality. Just putting stuff on tape and playing and hitting play and sitting back and seeing what comes back. That's what I do. Like, that's what my world is. And I think that that's very much what it was. What's dope about Stevie, too, is like there's so much of his DNA in what it was he created. Like, he touched as many parts of it as he could. I think we farm out a lot of our creativity to other folks and trust them to get it right versus just making an attempt to do as much of it as you can. Like Stevie, if he could play drums on it, he played drums on it. There's a lot. If you listen to a bunch of those Stevie records you love, there ain't no bass player. It's him playing Moog or it's him playing bass, keyboard bass, because it didn't feel right. Like if somebody else did it because it just wasn't his voice. Everything about those records was his voice, as many of those instruments as possible, and that's what made it feel like that, because it all came from him. Like every drum sound, everything, as much of that as possible, as much as he could pull off. And then when that wasn't the case, it was people that spoke the same language as him. So he would pull in players that would interpret that instrument the same way he would if he could play that one. So, yeah, that's what made him so dope at the time and so effective. It's just, he was just nonstop. Like, it was just a lifestyle, and he just lived on tape. That was it.
I know we're getting ready to close. I want to ask each of our panelists, I want you to give the audience one word that would help them to be sustained as creatives in creative spaces. One word. What do you think they need?
Literally one word.
One word.
Okay.
Whenever you get that word, I want you to go ahead and speak it.
Like I said earlier, be authentic. Because I'm going to tell you, like, the worst feeling in the world.
One word.
That's the one word, but I was just saying quickly why. Because it's not enough to say, but that's my one word. And I would say only, really quickly, it's the worst feeling in the world to wake to go to bed at night and stare at the ceiling, knowing that you weren't honest with yourself, knowing that you weren't yourself. I don't care how many records something sells, it don't matter. As long as I know I can be myself, as long as I know I did my best, as long as I know I was authentic, I don't care if we could sell 5 million records and it ain't real, it's going to be hard to sleep. But I don't care if it sells 2 copies, man. I can go to sleep at night knowing that it was real authenticity.
Fortitude.
Feeling.
Love.
So you all should love yourselves enough to have authenticity in your feeling, and you will show forth great fortitude as a result.
So, you all are making me feel like the bad guy for having to cut off this amazing conversation, but they're going to kick us out in about another 20 minutes. I have to go ahead. I'd like to thank our moderator, Tia Smedley, and our panelists, Shannon Sanders, Caroline Randall Williams, Shawn Whitsell, and Constance Bynum. And a round of applause for all of you for coming out this evening.